What's up, everyone? It is the 24th of June, 2020. I'm your host, Justin, and as always, I'm joined by Perry.
Hey Justin, man. How's it going, man?
Good.
Good. We're kind of getting towards the end of the week here. It's Hump Day. We're recording on Hump Day, and I just got on Spotify, and man, I gotta send a complaint over there because you were not named hottest single of the week.
Well, that's because I'm not single, Perry.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah, no complaint needed. They didn't make a mistake.
I feel like that if I ever used that pickup line in a bar or something, that's the exact response I would get. So that was a very accurate representation right
Of how
there.
the situation would go. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
at first, I wasn't sure if we were going. I'm like, oh, is Perry not doing a pickup line this time?
Oh man, come on. I'm better than that.
I know. I
I'd
should have
never
known.
forget.
It's like an elephant. Uh, they never forget.
I know. It was just I know I put on a few pounds, but geez, my friend.
Oh man.
What are we doing?
We're just bantering. Uh,
Okay.
but we're
We're gonna do
gonna
a
be
podcast later?
yeah, we're gonna be
Okay.
talking about the AFC South today. So and it's our last episode before we give away the autographed Andre Reed jersey. So
Is it?
yeah, next episode's the last episode of the month.
You're right.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. I want to win. That's a good one.
Right?
I also, after talking to you about it, I have watched many videos of Bill's Mafia going through tables, and it is violent.
Yeah, right.
It is violent. There's like 350-pound dudes picking up like 112-pound chicks and just throwing them through tables.
Yeah, it's insane. And then everyone celebrates.
Everybody's happy. The girl kind of limps away, but she looks happy.
Yeah, usually drinking a beer.
It's wild.
Uh, Also, if you guys could subscribe to us on YouTube, that'd be fantastic.
It's
Uh,
helpful.
you can follow us on all social media. You can also find us on, as Perry mentioned, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, everywhere where your podcast needs are.
Yeah. Yep. Please. And you know what? Just to help us out, if you listen to us on say you listen to us just on YouTube, if you have Spotify, just go give us a follow or subscription on Spotify or something like that. Just to help us out. Cost nothing. You don't have to listen over there, right? But spread the love. We're trying to grow here. I have a goal of 1,000 subscribers by the start of the NFL season. It's a really big goal, but every single one of you helping out is tremendous. Big thank you.
Yeah. Shoot, you want to get into some news, Perry?
Yeah, okay. We can talk about some news. First piece of news has got me thinking a little bit, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain, Justin, and I wanted an organic response. So that's why I didn't tell you before the show. Ezekiel Elliott is feeling good. He reports he's feeling good while recovering from COVID-19. We all know what COVID-19 is at this point. If you don't, you should really just turn on your computer.
Yeah.
But
Or
you
TV
wait, you're
or
watching. Yeah, anything.
literally anything.
Turn to the nearest person, cover your face, and ask them what it is. That way you'll get filled in. Anyways,
From 6 feet away.
so the news really isn't about Zeke so much. What I want to talk about at least. Zeke seems to be doing fine. That's great. Of course, that's what we want to hear. But what I was thinking, Justin, is if this NFL season happens, and that's still an if, there's no guarantees at this point, right? I think that it's leaning towards happening, but there's no guarantees. Players are still going to get infected with COVID-19 during the season. Like it's unavoidable. Like it's going
And
to
staff.
happen. And staff, right? But I'm more talking about fantasy relevance, right? I don't want to sound insensitive. Like I don't want anybody to get sick, but my job is to analyze fantasy. It's like a guaranteed 2 weeks missed if a player gets infected. Guaranteed, at least, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be a nightmare trying to balance and figure out what you're doing fantasy wise when your starting quarterback has COVID or
Yeah.
your no first round pick
No,
has
I've
COVID.
I've already
Now,
thought about this.
so Zeke probably should be moved up in a lot of draft boards because we're under the assumption there's nothing's been proven, but we're under the assumption that he will be immune to COVID-19 after recovering from it now. So
Yeah.
therefore, you think that you wouldn't be able to lose him to COVID-19 throughout the season. Am I crazy? Is this something I should be thinking about?
No, absolutely. I was actually discussing this with someone like a week or two ago. But I mean, the perfect solution though, guys, like once you draft your team, Perry's right. It's going to be a hectic year. Like they get this, they're going to be out for 2 weeks. You're going to need,
Minimum.
yeah, you're going to need to know what to do. So you got to make sure you subscribe to Clock Management so we could let you know who to pick up off the waiver wire.
Shameless.
It's
You
important.
are shameless. I hope you're blushing right now.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I thought about that and it's going to be weird. It's going to be really, really weird. Everybody, I listen to it, a lot of other content creators, fantasy football content creators, and I haven't really heard anybody else talking about this. And I don't know if people are in denial or something, but it's going to happen, and it's going to happen a lot. Like, it's going to be crazy, and these guys are going to be tested so often that they're not going to slip through the cracks with it.
No, like I got a Smitty over at the Fantasy Football Show. He was the one I was actually discussing this with because he brought it up the day that like this news broke, and I was like, man, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point.
Yeah. It's a wild world we're living in. It's going to be a crazy fantasy season. Assuming we have a season, there's probably not going to be fans. Players are going to be missing weeks due to an illness that they might not have no symptoms for and could play, but they don't want to infect other people. And it's just like, whew, we're going to have a big job this year, Justin.
Yeah, we'll be ready.
Buckle up. Okay.
And the good news, I mean, if one of us were to get it and have to be home for 2 weeks, we would just produce more fantasy content.
Yeah, big true. Okay, moving on. Thanks for that discussion. Please, if you guys have any input on that, leave a comment down below. But Adrian Peterson has come out to say that he would like to play 4 more years in the NFL.
I'm thinking that he has like a car loan or something.
In 4 years, he will be 39 years old.
Yeah, because I also know I remember seeing something like a couple years ago about how he was completely like broke, like he had spent all of his money. So I feel like this is more of a financial thing than a like ability thing.
Yeah, I've heard that he has made some poor choices or had some bad luck in regards to money. Man. 4 more years, 39 years old, Adrian Peterson. And the crazy thing is like he's still fairly productive.
Yeah, he might be able to do it. Him
Right.
and Frank Gore will be the only two.
Him and Frank Gore are going to win the Super Bowl with Tom Brady in 2023.
Yes.
That'd be incredible.
I'm so excited for it. Poor Rojo will be on the bench.
Okay, and here's my fantasy question or fantasy relevant question with this, because I guarantee you this is going to come up sometime this season. How far into the season do we get till we start talking about picking up Adrian Peterson off waivers?
So I'm a believer in Geis, so I'm gonna say week 3 because that's Geis is gonna set a new record and make it to week 3 before he gets hurt. So
right.
So week 3, Adrian
Week
Peterson.
3. All right, that's what week 3. Adrian Peterson is a waiver priority pickup.
Set it now.
Set it now. Antonio Brown is back in the news. Imagine that. Seahawks and Ravens have had discussions about signing the wide receiver. I also saw an update today that the Ravens have come out and said it's unlikely that it would happen with them. I have owned Antonio Brown in a dynasty league, just sitting there stashed. So a little bit of me wants him to sign somewhere. But if he signs with Seattle, I think that really hurts Tyler Lockett and it really hurts DK. Are you scared of that at all?
No, but the reason why I'm not scared of that is because I don't think that Antonio Brown will stay on a team.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I like he was so consistent in terms of like being like a level-headed guy in Pittsburgh for a long time. I I tend to think that all his I don't for lack of a better term antics. I don't think that's the best way to describe it. It it had to do with that giant hit that he took to the head
Yeah.
when he was still in Pittsburgh, and hopefully he's gotten the help he needed. And hopefully he's far more level-headed. He knows what happened to him, and they're able to help him, and now he can actually function.
Yeah, but the issue is when he starts taking more hits to the head.
True. I'm not saying he should play in the NFL again. Okay, I'm not saying he should. If I was his doctor, I would tell him to not play. But the guy seems to want to play football, and I think that he will be fantasy relevant any game that he is playing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So something to consider.
I've told you, when he was playing, I thought he was the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's really a much doubt about that. If you're in a super deep league, like the Dynasty League I have him in, we have a ton of bench spots. I just have him sitting down there, just holding a spot right now. We haven't done our rookie draft yet in that league, so I haven't had to clear up any space, but I might hold on to him still.
Yeah.
Jarrett Stidham, star quarterback for the New England Patriots. Quarterback for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, I laughed a little when you said star.
I was going for that. Coming out from their assistant coach, Dante, I can never pronounce his name. Dante Scarnuccia.
I was gonna say, don't look my way, Perry. Like I know I'm notoriously bad at this.
I butchered that. Anyways, he was on SiriusXM on Monday, and he said this about Jason Stidham. There's going to be some growing pains. There's no doubt about that. The guy does have skill, but there will be growing pains. Does that make you feel confident?
Oh yeah, super confident.
Yeah,
in not picking him.
A lot of what people are saying about him is that he's a bright kid, but when he doesn't know what to do, he'll just tuck the ball and run.
Nice.
Which, I can't imagine Bill Belichick being a supporter of that play style.
Oh, man. And he will learn in the NFL very quickly that's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just doubling down now on saying I'm not touching a single Patriot this season anywhere in fantasy. They very well may win some games. I think they're actually going to be fairly okay this season. They're not going to. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but they'll be fine. They'll win some games, but I'm not touching any of their players for fantasy.
N'Keal Harry's the one that I'm okay taking a shot on after his ADP is so low, and like it's a player where it could pan out with how much they loved him, but like outside of him, no. Especially, I mean, they don't even have any higher end players and ADP wise.
Yeah.
The closest I could think of is Sony Michel, and I'm absolutely not grabbing him.
Yeah, Sony. Ben Roethlisberger, or Mike Tomlin was asked about Ben Roethlisberger and how he felt he was doing with his recovery from elbow surgery, Tommy John surgery, that is. Mike Tomlin says that he is very pleased with the progress that Ben Roethlisberger is making. Everybody that's had the chance to work with him has said that they're very impressed with how far along he's come. I am seeing some people starting to move Big Ben up their draft boards. I do not agree with this. I think for a lot of the reasons that Justin and I have already talked about, in terms of how deep quarterback it is, you do not need to take a risk by drafting Ben Roethlisberger. I think that is inadvisable. Ben Roethlisberger has a ceiling from what we've seen in the past of QB 5, but that is a whole season ago, a whole Tommy John surgery ago, and Antonio Brown is no longer there. Le'Veon Bell is no longer there. It's just not the same situation. Ben Roethlisberger could come out week 1 and throw 5 touchdowns and make me look like an idiot, but I'm still not going to go pick him up because I know what could happen rest of season.
And
so
you know what is happening week 2.
right. He'll be away. It'll be an away game without any fans, so maybe this doesn't matter. I don't know. Man, this is a weird season. Anyways, just don't bite on the Ben Roethlisberger hype, please. There's so many better options out there right now.
Yeah.
It's reported coming out of the Jets team right now that Le'Veon Bell could be traded before the trade deadline if the Jets are not in contention. Reading that, Le'Veon Bell will be traded before the trade deadline. Am I right?
I mean, I hope so for Le'Veon Bell's sake.
It depends on where he lands because at least where he's at fantasy football wise, he's getting all the work.
Yeah.
Which is why he was relevant last season at all.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. Something to consider. I haven't decided what this makes me do with Le'Veon Bell. I think I've made it pretty clear I'm pretty high on Le'Veon Bell this season.
Yeah, this doesn't affect my ranking of him.
I think I have to agree. I think it keeps him right where he's at, and then I'll assess when the season starts going on.
Yeah.
It's hard to draft on something like as speculative as that is. So
yeah, especially when you don't even know what team he might be going to or anything.
Right.
Like, it could be great for him, like you said. It might not be great for him, but you can't really speculate on it. So no reason to adjust rankings.
This just in, Le'Veon Bell's been traded to Tampa Bay.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, Dak Prescott officially signs a franchise tender with the Cowboys. Sorry, I almost said 4-year and got everybody excited. He wanted a 4-year deal. He did not get it yet. Dallas has till July 15th to work out a long-term deal. I am not concerned about Dak sitting out. He seems to be fine with playing this season and then getting his long-term deal, but he will be making $31.4 million this season on that franchise tag, so he will be doing just fine.
If I'm him, I'm just going to keep raising how much I want so they can't get a contract for me done.
I think you'd only be franchised 3 times, or is it twice?
I'll have to ask Kirk Cousins.
So good. Last piece of news here. Jalen Reagor, beat reporter coming out saying, our beat reporter out of Philadelphia coming out saying that he thinks Jalen Reagor may lead the team in receptions. And I recently realized that Alshon Jeffrey is not even fully recovered from his foot right now, and he has no timetable to return.
Yes.
Some people are saying that it could be as long as 6 to 8 weeks into the season.
Yeah, and yet I don't know.
So Deshaun Jackson is he going to be the lead reception guy on that team? I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I'm going with Reagor there. I'm assuming I've been assuming Reagor is the lead wide receiver there in Philly.
I think so. I think that's not even like a crazy bet at all.
No, yeah, I don't know why anyone thinks otherwise. It blows my mind that people could assume otherwise.
It's the Deshaun Jackson like reverb.
No,
that's just like hanging around. It's weird.
Deshaun Jackson, even if like Deshaun Jackson may get more fantasy points than Reagor, I don't think he will, but he still won't be the number 1 like wide receiver on the team because he'll do it all in 2 catches.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Jalen Reagor will be the number 1 receiver on that team, and I don't even think it'll be all that close.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the news I want to talk about.
I got some news that nobody cares about. You like that?
Yeah.
So I mean, throwback to last news no one cares about. I got the details, Barry. Security video came out. Goddard was sucker punched in the zoo bar in Aberdeen, South Dakota on Friday.
Why was that so hard for you to say?
No, I was just slowing it down to be clear.
Oh, okay. Cool.
The blow left him unconscious, and it happened at 1 a.m. Yeah.
That's a big punch.
Right? And
On a big football player.
there is video out there that you guys can check out if you're interested in it. He turns out he was absolutely fine afterwards once he came to. So like, I don't feel bad about watching the the video.
Okay.
But yeah, I told you guys I'd get all the details on it. So I really had to get my investigator hat on, my magnifying glass out, and do some detective work on this and Google it. So the Browns' Kareem Hunt said he finally spoke about the incident with the marijuana and the alcohol in an open container of alcohol in his car. And he said he's, in quotes, got to do better after the incident. Right? Okay. Good call, Kareem Hunt. Bold statement.
Gotta do better.
gotta do better than leaving weed and alcohol in the open view of my car when I get pulled over by the police.
Does that mean like leave it in the glove box, or does that mean not have it in the car at all?
I mean, small baby steps here, Perry. I'm going glove box.
Okay. Wild.
Patriots trainer says Mohamed Sanu has huge chip on his shoulder now after returning from core surgery.
Okay.
Yeah. Sweet. I'm not sure what that really means or how it's.
Is he angry at his core?
Yeah, I know. Like, who's the chip for? Like, nobody did that to you.
I'm gonna show you abdominals.
He's doing so many crunches now.
So many crunches. I'll show you. They're significant. Our jokes are terrible. All right. Thank you. Whoa, I almost just fell out of my chair.
That would have been great.
You blew me away at that last joke.
It was your joke. I just provided the news.
Man, I'm drinking ginger ale, okay? I'm losing it.
Last piece of news no one cares about. Clinton Dix shows off his speed running from a bear and its cub. There's a video where he's like riding a scooter. I don't know where this is. It looks like either a sidewalk, but cars are parked on it. It's weird. And he's riding a scooter, and as he passes this SUV on the scooter, comes around the corner, and there's a bear and its cub sitting there, and he jumps off the scooter, which launches the scooter towards the bear, and then he takes off running in the opposite direction, and the scooter scared the crap out of the bear and its cub, and they ran away from him.
Is this like an episode of Punk'd?
I don't know. But I was like, man, that's ridiculous. Like, he's riding a scooter and comes across a bear. Like, where is he? This is what happens with quarantine. The animals are taking the city back.
He's in Chicago.
I was looking for the bear joke to be had there, too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It was kind of low-hanging fruit, but I grabbed it.
Yeah. But see,
all right.
This quarantine period's got the animals taking back our cities.
I know, it's beautiful.
Bears roaming the street.
I saw Jay Cutler walking around the other day.
Oh, man, that's terrifying. But the good news is I'm sure he just looked so nonchalant.
Yeah.
He wasn't aggressive. He was just like, whatever.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Jay Cutler just does not care.
All right, let's get into this AFC South.
All right. Let's get into it. So we'll do the same format that we've been doing the last few weeks, Justin. We'll start with our quarterbacks. I'll go first, and I'll talk about a guy that I know you're very high on, and I'm very on the fence on, and I'm hoping that you can convince me some more. That's Ryan Tannehill, quarterback for the Titans, Ryan Tannehill. I think that Ryan Tannehill showed that he is a very capable quarterback to go out and win a lot of games. I did not see anything that showed me that I would want him to be my fantasy quarterback. I think a lot of his success came due to the fact that Derrick Henry was running over entire teams, and it just made it really easy for Ryan Tannehill to sit back there and just not turn the ball over. A lot of these games, he had one game where he had 39 attempts, but he also threw 2 interceptions that game. Otherwise, he's kind of in the like low 20s or even below 20 on attempts. And it's just not something that I really want out of a fantasy quarterback. I get that he's very efficient and that's great. That's totally fine. But it's kind of like the Tom Brady argument from the last couple of years is like, oh, but he's Tom Brady. And it's like, well, yeah, but he's just efficient. He's going to go win games, but he's not going to win you fantasy games. And I fear that that's the best we'll get from Ryan Tannehill. And the worst we'll get is Ryan Tannehill from Miami, which is completely possible. And I feel like people are kind of unwilling to accept that might happen. Am I completely off my rocker, Justin?
Yes. No, that's what I think though. Like I think you look at where AJ Brown's being drafted. AJ Brown is being drafted fairly high. And the reason that is because of the performance and connection he showed with Ryan Tannehill last year. I think people are expecting him to improve this season with regards to AJ Brown. Well, if AJ Brown is improving, so is Ryan Tannehill. He has to throw him the ball. So he's going to improve. I don't think he's going to be a top, probably 8 quarterback. I think his ceiling's probably around 8.
Can I address the AJ Brown thing real quick?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna address it with Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson is going 3 spots behind AJ Brown, but we're not drafting Mitch Trubisky, assuming that.
No, please don't. But
you know what I mean? It's just.
But who's the Bears quarterback?
Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have added risk in that pick as well, though. You know what I mean? Like, so you have that low ceiling plus an added risk. And then also on top of that, Ryan Tannehill is a mobile quarterback who's going to get you extra rushing yards that you're not going to get from Trubisky or Nick Foles. So he's definitely higher than both of them. And then his completion percentage shows he's actually a good quarterback. So if you increase volume, he's going to do better than either one of those guys would.
I think that last season shows us one thing. He had a good season and he's capable of having another one. I just don't think that I mean, if we're going to judge him on one season, why not judge him on like the other seasons that he's had as well? He was absolutely terrible and couldn't keep his job.
Yeah,
and then he got put onto a team with an incredible defense, an incredible offensive line, which got weaker.
Yeah.
With an incredible running back. And I'm not ready to draft Ryan Tannehill as my fantasy quarterback. I'm not willing to do it.
I mean, the reason why we're not judging him on those is because he's on that same team. Like, he has the same coaching staff. He has that same running back that he didn't have in Miami. So I trust the Titans coaching staff especially more than I do Miami's. So I think he's going to continue to improve. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be an elite tight end, but like
he's not a tight end.
Yeah, well then he won't be for sure. Quarterback. But I think that he's going to there's going to be weeks that you could start him and I think he'll be on that fringe 12 quarterback scale, which is quite a bit higher than where he's currently being drafted. So I'm not like saying he's going to be amazing or anything, like go reach for Ryan Tannehill. But if like there's been drafts where I've gotten towards the end and there was just no quarterbacks that I liked, and I'd grab Tannehill at that point.
If he were to, and this is the last thing I want to talk about him just for sake of time, we can talk more off air if we want to, but if he were to land at that 12 spot, that would put him ahead of people like Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Baker Mayfield. There's also Daniel Jones is ranked higher than him and Ben Roethlisberger, which I don't necessarily agree with. But Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford in particular, you're going to put him ahead of those two?
No, but I told you I have Aaron Rodgers higher than that.
Right. Then there's Tom Brady. I mean, maybe Carson Wentz falls out of that top 12. I could see that happening. But after that, it gets pretty tight. So even if he has a pretty decent season, I don't know if I see him creeping into the top 12. But we could talk about that more afterwards. You haven't quite convinced me yet.
Okay, but you do agree he's higher than where he should, or he's lower than where he should be.
So Ben Roethlisberger needs to be below him. Daniel Jones probably needs to be below him. I would put him at 14,
So,
behind Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford.
but ahead of Baker Mayfield.
I think so.
I'm okay with
At,
I'm okay
at,
with this, Perry.
at this point, but I also think Baker Mayfield's ceiling is much, much higher than Ryan Tannehill's. But I also think his floor is
he could finish and not be a starter.
Right. Okay. Your turn.
Okay, hold on. I got to pull my Word document back up. I brought my stats up when you started asking me about Tannehill. Okay, so I got the Jaguars here, and so of course I got to talk about Beowulf Minshew here, and the mustache. I'm not sure how the scoring will be done this year in fantasy, but I think that they combine the mustache and his points. I'll have to confirm that. Uh, but so in 2019, Minshew had a pretty decent season. Not amazing, but he started out pretty hot, which got people hyped on him. He had 3,200 yards thrown, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 13 fumbles. He finished the year with 229 fantasy points. It's funny, where I looked it up, it said 229 PPR, which I'm not sure why that matters for a quarterback.
True.
But I'm glad they clarified that. Also,
He's
229 standard.
I mean, I would not be surprised if he had like 3 receptions this year, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I should probably look. He may have had 1 or 2 last year. Maybe they ran some trick play where they threw him the ball. But he would finish as the QB 20. So he wasn't the quarterback the entire season, but still not a great finishing point for him. At this point, I think that he's definitely not a starting caliber quarterback. We just went over like the bottom tier of quarterbacks. He's not in that tier. So I think he's just below that tier of the guys we were just talking about as quarterback. And also they got rid of Nick Foles there. They did not bring in anyone to challenge him for the quarterback spot. So he's secure in his job. It's just, how well is he going to do? I'm in a super flex. You could take a shot on him or some sort of 2 quarterback league, but don't draft him in a 1 quarterback league.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's one of those guys that we're rooting for, but I'm not going to draft him. I think
yeah,
that's pretty set. Okay, we'll move on here to the Houston Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. Lot of questions about Deshaun Watson that have very little to do with Deshaun Watson. It has everything to do with DeAndre Hopkins leaving the team. So I think that's kind of where I'll focus my topic of conversation as well. The 3 seasons that Watson has played quarterback for any number of time, he only played 7 games in 2017, which was his first season. Hopkins has had arguably the 3 best years of his career. 2015 was very good, but 1,300 yards, almost 1,600 yards, 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. Hopkins has been very, very productive his entire career, but he seems to be, most of his production has come from the 3 years he played with Watson. So I think right off the bat, you would assume that Watson is going to see some kind of drop off, losing a wide receiver as good as DeAndre Hopkins. And to be frank, I don't think Will Fuller and Kenny Stills are enough to replace DeAndre Hopkins. The addition of Brandon Cooks makes me very excited, but we'll talk about the wide receivers in just a moment. But I'm not quite ready to say that Deshaun Watson is going to miss out on all the statistics that I just read out from Hopkins. I don't think he's just automatically, boom, those are gone, goodbye. I think the Texans are going to be really bad this season, and I think they're going to be behind quite a bit, and I think they're going to throw the ball a whole lot more than they have in the past. In 2018, he had 505 pass attempts. I could see him throwing around 550 pass attempts this season, maybe more. And I think the sheer volume is just going to lead to just more stats. And looking at where he falls in the quarterback rankings overall, currently he is number 6 behind Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Miller. Um, and right behind him is Josh Allen. I'm not ready to put Josh Allen ahead of Deshaun Watson. I know a lot of people like Josh Allen because he runs the ball, but guess what? So does Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson can run the ball as good as almost anybody in any quarterback in football other than Lamar Jackson. So I'm keeping Deshaun Watson right where he's at 6. I might not draft him as high as I used to draft him, but that also means he's going to fall a little bit lower for me, and I might be able to grab him in one of these later rounds. So I actually like Deshaun Watson this year, just because I think he's going to throw the ball a lot, maybe more interceptions, more sacks, but probably more yards and maybe even more touchdowns.
Yeah, I like him. And he's in that second tier of quarterback to me, and that, like, I don't mind grabbing the last quarterback in that tier, and then if I don't get the last quarterback in that tier, then I wait until the end of the draft to get my quarterback.
Right. And I mean, Josh Allen might go ahead of him. Drew Brees is flying up draft boards currently, and I might want Drew Brees ahead of Deshaun Watson, to be honest with you, but Deshaun Watson could fall pretty far. And if he falls to, like, oh man, I don't even know here. If you've got 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and the best tight end, best running back, best wide receiver that are available are not guys that are on your list, but Deshaun Watson's sitting there, why not?
Yeah,
why not?
I was just going to say 7th round is beautiful for me to grab Watson.
Yeah, and the upside's very, very high with Deshaun Watson. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right, my next guy, I got the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm going to talk about Andrew Luck. No, just kidding.
Oh, I wish though, man. I wish.
No, Phillip Rivers. It's weird to say it.
That is weird. That is so weird. I don't think I'll ever get used to it.
Yeah, you probably won't have to. We have like a year or 2 of it, and then probably no more.
All right.
But last year, we all talk about how Phillip Rivers had kind of a down year. Because, I mean, fantasy points wise, he did, but he also completed 390 passes last year, which is the highest that he had completed since 2015. So that's not a bad stat. His yards were 4,600, which was the highest that he's had since 2015. Again, so again, not a bad number. Now here's the problem. He only threw 23 touchdown passes, which is the lowest he's had ever.
How many interceptions?
Yeah, that's the next problem. He threw 20 interceptions, which is the second most he's thrown ever.
Wow, that's crazy. The second most, huh?
Yeah, in 2016, he threw 21. So he outdid it by 1 in 2016.
Wow.
Now, I think that with Phillip Rivers being 38 years old, coming off what they say is a down year for him, which, I mean, fantasy numbers wise it is, but still impressive that he's able to complete as many passes for as much yards as he was. The chart, or with the Chargers, he averaged fewer than 20.4 fantasy points for the first time since 2012. And at that point, he had 17 fantasy points per game. He moved to a team that has a much, much improved offensive line, though. So that's going to help him immensely because he's been sacked his entire career, a ridiculous amount. So that's going to help him. Plus the fact that he's got a bunch of offensive weapons, which I'll get into with the wide receivers and running backs. So I expect him to do better than he did last year. As we were talking about that bottom tier quarterback, you'll notice that I did not mention his name. And that's because he's not quite there. To me, he's right below that. And he's a guy I would love to grab in a 2 quarterback league because I think he has a high ceiling, a lot higher than most of those guys that are down there in that tier. But it's a risky pick as he is 38 years old, moving to a new team for all the reasons I spoke about. But it's a guy I like in 2 quarterback leagues.
Yeah, yeah, that's easy. That's an easy one. He's not going to be drafted in 1 quarterback leagues, or he shouldn't. So
I have to say I have an amazing wife because while we're recording, she snuck in here and brought me some sort of root beer float thing.
Aw. My wife's not even home. Anyways, let's get into some running backs, Justin. I'm going to talk about Derrick Henry first. I think Derrick Henry, kind of like Ryan Tannehill, very polarizing player right now in fantasy. I can hear whatever you're doing to that root beer float.
You don't want to know.
I can hear it, though. Derrick Henry finished with 1,540 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns last season. I think the very easy analysis would be that touchdown count is probably going to go down. I don't see him repeating 16 touchdowns. I think he'll have double-digit touchdowns. I think he'll be closer to 12-ish. His offensive line is worse, quite a bit worse, actually. The defense is still very good, which means that they should expect to be in tight games, if not leading in a lot of games. So he will get still a lot of work. I think that there's clearly nobody else on this team that you would want to own running back wise, not even as a handcuff, to be completely honest with you. But I do think that we should point out that he was the running back 14 last year in points per game before week 10. That's coming from Mike Tagliere at Fantasy Pros. And that's important to know. I understand that the end of the season was incredible and he won a lot of people fantasy championships, but you got to get there first. And he was behind people like David Johnson and Mark Ingram till week 10 last season, which is insane considering how much hype that Derrick Henry got.
Yeah, I remember at the end of the season us talking about that, like, because of the end of the year, how high is he going to be drafted?
Yeah, yeah. He's not super involved in the passing game. He did have to did catch 2 touchdowns last season, which is great. He had his best receiving season in 2019, which is great. But he only had 18 receptions on the entire season for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure, actually I can confirm it. Yes, one of those was for 75 yards. So almost half of his entire yardage was in 1 reception. So if you're in a standard league, I think Derrick Henry moves up quite a bit. I don't know if he creeps in the top 3 even in standard leagues.
No, not for me.
But Derrick Henry, he's kind of right at that point where if it fell between Derrick Henry and say Michael Thomas, which if Michael Thomas fell that far, I'd be very happy. I'd probably take Michael Thomas. If it came to Derrick Henry or Devontae Adams.
Who would you rather have, Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb?
Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is with Derrick Henry. And there are going to be weeks where he makes me look like an idiot. But I think the overall product is what we really care about. It's that points per game, not that points in week 13, 14, 15. Even though those are nice, they win you a championship. Go trade for him in week 9. That's probably your better bet with Derrick Henry. His backups, Darrington Evans and Dolan Dawkins, I don't think are really fantasy relevant, not even as handcuffs, like I said.
I will say, though, if Derrick Henry does go down, I want Evans as he's the rookie there, and
yeah,
he seems to be their favorite. So he's a guy I'd keep an eye on if Derrick Henry did go down.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot. I am talking about a running back now. That's Leonard Fournette. I had to scroll back to there. I'm like, wait, which running back am I talking about? So trade rumors have been circulating about Leonard Fournette, which we addressed before. And I don't think that we need to go too much into that. Like we said, like until you see more credible stuff, what teams are reaching out, it doesn't really factor into my rankings of him. But it is something that I wanted to bring up because I know I've heard people mention it as a reason not to draft him. I don't agree with that. In 2019, though, he finished with 1,152 rushing yards, 522 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns for 259 PPR points. That's a pretty good season. And he seemed to finally get a chance in the passing game, which we hadn't seen in the past.
And he stepped up.
Yeah, so that was great. Also, he's 25 years old.
Right.
Like, I think a lot of people think he's a lot older than that because he looks like he's 35, 45, but he's not. He's 25. So he's still young, still got a lot of miles left on him. And then the 1,152 yards was a career high in rushing. He had 4.3 yards per attempt and 76 receptions, which is just fantastic. Those are all like personal bests for him for a season. So I like this about him, and he's a hard runner. He had 3 yards after contact. He will run people over.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so in a sea of running back by committees that the NFL has evolved into, he will be one of the few workhorse running backs out there. He's not in that top tier running back or probably even the second tier for me, but he's in that third tier where he'll be a high end running back too.
I personally think that Leonard Fournette is sitting far too low at the moment. The people that are ahead of Leonard Fournette currently, Chris Carson.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Todd Gurley.
Don't agree with that either.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is like a maybe for me.
Yeah, that's right where I have him.
The thing with Leonard Fournette is he did all of that last year and only had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no way that he repeats with only 3 touchdowns. No, so I think he's 7 or 8, maybe 9 touchdowns.
So I agree with you there. The one thing that I will say though is they did bring in Chris Thompson from Washington, and he's a great pass catching back. I don't expect him to be fantasy relevant in any way, but I do expect him to steal a little bit of the pass catching work from him.
I think he will, but I don't think it's if this was 2019 and they brought in a pass catching back, I'd be very worried because he only had 22 receptions in 2019 or 2018. But the fact that he had 76 receptions, it was like one of the prime examples of a guy going into a season being like, I worked on my passing game, and he clearly actually worked on the passing game. So,
yeah, which nobody believed him.
Leonard Fournette will be drafted easily as your third running back in a lot of leagues, and that is incredible.
Yeah, and like I said, he's a high-end running back too.
Oh, yes, that is incredible. So everybody just shut up about Leonard Fournette. Yeah. So that way he sits down where he is below Chris Carson, and go ahead and let somebody else take Chris Carson first, Joel, and then you get Leonard Fournette, and you're very, very happy.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. We'll keep this between us so everyone can do that.
Nobody else will know. Okay, yeah, I love Leonard Fournette. Sorry. All right, I'm going to talk about David Johnson, formerly best running back in the league, David Johnson, now running back for Houston, which I actually think is a better spot for him than Arizona. So David Johnson, I'm actually like somewhat excited about David Johnson. I don't think he's going to be anywhere near where he landed in what was that, 2017? No, 2018. Yeah, in 2016 too. He was incredible, right? I don't think he's anywhere near that level of player, but I do think that he's going to get a ton of work. He's an awesome pass catching back. There was, let's see, it was in 2016 when he had 879 receiving yards on 80 receptions. He had 4 passing touchdowns. He had 16 rushing touchdowns that season. He was incredible. He was a better wide receiver than most wide receivers that season. So he's very, very talented. I do think that he will outperform his current draft ranking, which I just had it pulled up, and then I started pulling up Leonard Fournette stuff because I got excited. He's currently ranked the 21st running back. I think that he will beat that by quite a bit.
I believe the word you're looking for was 21st.
What did I say?
21st.
Wow. I did that.
Yeah, don't worry. I got you.
Can we start over?
Nope. Can't do it.
All right. So 21st, David Johnson. No, I think that he will finish much higher than that. I think we're looking at probably like 15th running back for David Johnson, as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I was going to say my only fear is his health, but yeah, it's a fantastic spot for him.
Yeah, he played 13 games last season for Arizona. I think part of the reason that he only played 13 was because they didn't really need him all that much. I think he could put together a 14, 15, 16 game season, and then he's very fantasy relevant.
What's crazy is everyone is like, yes, this is a great landing spot or a great improvement for David Johnson. But this is also a great improvement for Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake is much higher than David Johnson. The only other running back there that we need to worry about a little bit is Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson is a great pass catching running back. He has been for his entire career. He will continue to be. So some of that upside that we just talked about with David Johnson and pass catching, it will be hindered by Duke Johnson. Like, Duke Johnson will steal some receptions 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. As for rushing attempts, he'll probably sit around 60 rush attempts for the season. So he won't take too many away from David Johnson, but the two Johnsons will be relevant, I think, fantasy-wise. Duke Johnson will be relevant in very deep leagues. If David Johnson were to go down, I actually kind of like Duke Johnson.
Yeah, I do too. All right, well, I'm going to get into the Colts then. Okay. I don't got anything to add to that.
I baited you there with the two Johnsons comment.
I know.
You didn't even bite.
No, I snickered. I tried to hold it in. All right, so the Colts running backs.
Yeah, now I got you distracted.
All right, so 447 rushing attempts in 2019. That's what the Colts had as a team. That's the third most in the NFL, behind the Seahawks and Ravens. In 14 games, Marlon Mack led the team with 1,091 yards on 247 attempts. And he finished as the 17th running back in fantasy. So this is last year under contract there in Indianapolis. So I'm expecting the team went and spent a lot of draft capital on Jonathan Taylor, who I had as my number one running back pre-draft. And he was the 41st overall pick in the draft. So they spent high-end second round draft capital on this player. It's because he's coming into play. He's not going to ride the bench, but I expect Marlon Mack will likely start the season as the lead back, with Taylor getting work and learning from Mack. After about the halfway point, I expect that to start to transition the other way to where Jonathan Taylor's leading the backfield, with Marlon Mack coming in as the change of pace type player there. In redraft, I think this is going to cause some issues, and that Taylor is being overdrafted due to this. At his current ADP, I think I would rather have Mack because he's lower in the ADP, and I would rather have the running back that I think is going to start out with the hotter hand, and then maybe trade him after a couple weeks into the season. But in Dynasty, Taylor is going to be a beast, and that's who I want on my team.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a shame, man. I feel like Marlon Mack never truly ascended,
Yeah,
and
he
and
finally started to get a chance, and then they drafted a running back.
a very good running back too. So, um, okay. So I'm going to talk about Tennessee's wide receivers. We're going to jump into the wide receivers here. Uh, AJ Brown, who we've already spoken about, Justin, I think you brought him up. AJ Brown finished last season with 52 receptions, 1,051 yards, and 8 touchdowns, along with 60 yards rushing. That's cool, I guess. Um, and so AJ Brown, I do think that he will repeat as a very good fantasy wide receiver this season. He is currently going 10th, ahead of Odell Beckham Jr. I would take Odell Beckham Jr. ahead of AJ Brown personally, um, but I might be the minority there. I feel like a lot of people might get angry with me about taking ODB ahead of him, but that's what I'm gonna do. AJ Brown needs to increase the target count big time. And I know that doesn't necessarily fall on him, but 82 targets is a little bit low for me when considering that he's probably going to be my number one wide receiver if I were to take him where he's currently going. I suppose if I went wide receiver early, he could be my second, but that's not the strategy I'm going to go. The 8 touchdowns, I think that is right in his wheelhouse. I think he'll finish between 8 and 10 touchdowns, so I don't see a whole lot of regression there. But if he were to get that target count up to like 100, 110, that reception count up to like 65, 75, somewhere in that, he'll probably sit around 1,300 yards, which is awesome. So I like AJ Brown. I think he's a very safe pick when it comes to wide receiver. If you go running back, and then get your first wide receiver as AJ Brown, that's a great start to a draft, in my opinion. Some of the other wide receivers on the team, Corey Davis. I know that every season there's a Corey Davis believer. The season they finished with 891 yards and 4 touchdowns, 2018, was like a nightmare for me because everybody wanted to talk about how amazing Corey Davis would be in 2019. Then he went back down to 600 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I think that's right about where he's going to sit. I don't think Ryan Tannehill's going to throw the ball all that often, right? It's part of the reason why I don't want him as my fantasy quarterback. He's going to be efficient and win games, but I don't think he's going to be able to sustain two very fantasy relevant wide receivers. And I'm sorry if I'm starting Corey Davis, things went horribly wrong for me. Adam Humphries does get quite a bit of talk within the community because he's shown flashes of being very good at football. I think he's your standard slot receiver. He's going to have a few games where he shows up and helps them win games, but predicting the game that he has 100 yards and a touchdown is going to be incredibly difficult. So Adam Humphries is untouchable in all formats for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on all accounts.
Right on. Your turn.
All right, wide receivers. We're talking from the Jaguars. So
Who?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right. Double checking.
So the Jaguars basically don't throw to the tight end. So they had the wide receivers there, targets. DJ Chark had 355 out of 589. That's 60% of the target share. DD Westbrook, sorry, I had something in my throat, had 20%, and I forgot who the other one had, 17%. I forgot to write his name down. Great.
Great. Good job.
Yeah. But so anyway, DJ Chark is very clearly the number one wide receiver there. He's the only one that you want on a fantasy team from there. But unfortunately, I think he's being overdrafted. And the reason why is because this is built on a rapport with that Minshew had last season and people projecting for them to do even more. DJ Chark was the only 1,000-yard receiver there, and he had 73 receptions and just topped 1,000 yards with 1,008 yards and 8 touchdowns. He averaged 13 yards per reception, 67 yards per game. All great things for him. and he's clearly the wide receiver 1 on that team. That does not make him the wide receiver 1 on your fantasy team. The other wide receivers, and I think this is the problem here, is Westbrook had 66 receptions for 660 yards. Chris Conley, 47 receptions. Keenan Cole had 24 receptions. And then they drafted Laviska Shenault. I hope I pronounced that right. Out of Colorado. This is a huge wide receiver that's going to be a big target in the red zone. He's a big-bodied dude that's a beast in the red zone. So I think he's going to steal some of these red zone targets. And he's like, if it wasn't such a deep wide receiver class, he would be getting talked about more. But it's going to make this wide receiver core just harder. Like, the ball's going to get spread around more. And I think that's going to hurt Chark a little bit. Not a huge amount. He's still their wide receiver 1. I just think for the draft capital you have to put into him, he's going too high, so I'm probably not going to grab him.
Yeah, right on. I like DJ Chark this year. I like him. He'll be fun to watch, but it'll be hard for me to have him on quite a few teams. But.
Yeah, just in the range he's going, there's just a lot of other wide receivers I'd rather grab.
Sure. All right, let's talk about Houston's wide receivers, and I'm going to try and move this along because we are creeping here.
Yeah.
Will Fuller, unfortunately, is the number 1 receiver currently on the depth chart for the Houston Texans.
That's incorrect.
That is not correct, as Justin just said. The number 1 wide receiver will be Brandon Cooks. There is no doubt in my mind, assuming Brandon Cooks stays healthy, which is far more likely than Will Fuller staying healthy. Will Fuller has never played 16 games in a season. The most he's ever played is 14, and that was his first season in 2016. The most receptions he ever had was last year at 49. The most yards he's ever had was last year at 670. Will Fuller, people like to call him a boom or bust. I think that is being nice. I think that Will Fuller is unplayable. He will win you a week. There is no doubt he will win you a week every now and then.
He'll be talked about. You're going to hear people talking about him because of the way he wins.
Right. But he will lose you 6 weeks before he wins you another week, or he just won't be playing anymore. I have nothing personal against Will Fuller. I wish him the best, but I'm sorry he will not be on a single fantasy team that I draft this season. Not even close. Brandon Cooks, on the other hand, will be on quite a few of my teams. I really like Brandon Cooks this season. I understand that he's getting a little older, but he is only 26 currently. He'll be 27 this season. It feels like he's been around forever, but I think it's just because he jumped. This is his 4th team, which is very surprising to me, actually, that he gets moved around so much.
Yeah.
Last season was his worst season of his career, arguably. But I blame that way more on Jared Goff than I do on Brandon Cooks. And the fact that Jared Goff was so bad that he couldn't sustain the 3 incredible wide receivers that they have on that team. I think that we're looking at a 1,000-yard season from Brandon Cooks this season. He's being drafted 1 spot below Will Fuller, which is, if I could curse, it would be right now. But we don't curse on this show because we're good boys. Brandon Cooks is an incredible value this season. I think that everybody should go ahead and steal him in the super late rounds that he's dropping to. Kenny Stills, I'm not worried about Kenny Stills. I won't be drafting Kenny Stills in any of my leagues. I feel like he starts dropping to the point where I'm just going to take shots on young wide receivers, start grabbing some rookies. Kenny Stills will be fairly irrelevant until Will Fuller goes down. At that point, Kenny Stills might move up a little bit. We can talk about that when that happens. But as of right now, don't draft Kenny Stills. Don't draft Will Fuller. Enjoy Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I'm a huge Brandon Cooks truther. I love him. 1,000 yards every time he moved to a new team. He had over 1,000 yards that season.
He's had 1,000 yards in every season except his first, where he played 10 games,
Yep.
and last season where he played 14. Otherwise, he's played 16 games in 4 seasons, had over 1,000 yards in 4 seasons, had 9, 8, 7, and 5 touchdowns.
People are completely overblowing his injury risk, and especially people who are telling you to go draft Will Fuller.
It's insane. It's actually insane.
All right, so I love him, and another receiver I love, I'm about to talk about, which is awesome. That's T.Y. Hilton. I think that T.Y. Hilton's also being kind of slept on for the same reason. People are like, he's injury prone. So T.Y. Hilton played the majority of his career with Andrew Luck. Then, of course, Luck retired out of nowhere, which sucked. But
for all of us.
Yeah, we're all tragically stricken by this. Hilton's fantasy stock obviously went down. Brissett isn't a horrible quarterback, just the way he was playing was more of a game manager, and he would throw short passes, which was not optimal for T.Y. Hilton's fantasy production. So that definitely hurt him last year. I already talked about Phillip Rivers coming back. Phillip Rivers is that old school gunslinger type mentality of a quarterback, and he likes to throw it deep. So that's going to be great for T.Y. Hilton. Andrew Luck and Hilton, like they were amazing together back in the day. Everyone remembers, like, you think back to then, and like that was a great duo to have in fantasy. Like, you are killing it with them. They're both drafted in 2012, came up, had that relationship together, and Hilton had over 1,000 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 of those years, and the one year he didn't, he had 966 yards, so basically 1,000 yards. He's currently the wide receiver 26 off the board and the 43rd player overall. Like, I love him at that value because he's probably going to be like your wide receiver 3, where if he is an injury risk, but at your wide receiver 3, as long as he's healthy, you can start him and you're not reliant on him because you've already have 2 other wide receivers on your team. So I love him at that value. I will talk about Michael Pittman Jr., the rookie wide receiver there. He's the only other one that I really look at as probably a fantasy starter, especially in any sort of dynasty. He's another guy who, because of this deep wide receiver class in 2020, he was kind of overlooked, but he's like an amazing NFL like ready wide receiver, and he's coming off a big year in college. He had 1,275 yards, 11 touchdowns at USC. Great dude. He is going to be competing with people like Zach Pascal to be the number 2 wide receiver there. But I think that he has a chance to be a wide receiver 3 even this season if everything goes right for him. So it's just a guy I'd keep my eye on, and I might snag super late in the draft. Oh, and his ADP is 171, so he's basically free.
Okay, let's jump into tight ends real quickly. First guy I want to talk about is Tennessee tight end Jonnu Smith. I am extremely excited about Jonnu Smith. I think every season there's a tight end that just kind of creeps around low in ADP for no apparent reason. I think last season that was Mark Andrews. I think this season it is going to be Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith there's a quote from Bill Belichick, who called Jonnu Smith one of the best tight ends in football. Personally, I think Jonnu Smith is going to be what Darren Waller was last season. He's going to play a much, much bigger role in this Tennessee Titans offense than he did last season. He is only 24 years old. TJ Hawkinson, who dominated the NFL Combine 2 seasons ago, everybody was so excited about that. Jonnu Smith is the same size, but he's faster, stronger, quicker, and he's a better leaper. He is an incredible breaking tackles. I don't understand why Jonnu Smith is currently 15 So
It's because the people who are afraid of Tannehill.
right, maybe, but I don't think you have to be an incredible fantasy quarterback in order to have a good
I,
fantasy tight
yeah, I
end.
agree with you.
So
I think it's over exaggerated.
right, so Jonnu Smith, I will take him ahead of Mike Gesicki. I will take him ahead of Noah Fant, though I do like Noah Fant. I will take him ahead of Hayden Hurst. I would take him ahead of Austin Hooper, who is the second tight end in Cleveland. I might take him ahead of Rob Gronkowski because he's the third tight end on that team. So that immediately puts him in the top 10 for me. So I really like Jonnu Smith. Big sleeper this season. You'll hear more about Jonnu Smith from me as we get closer to our sleeper episode.
Yeah, I like Jonnu Smith too. I think you like him slightly more than I do, but I like him.
Yeah.
All right, Perry, I'm going to cheat here and go through both tight ends real quick for my teams because first I have the Colts tight end. That's Jack Doyle. And
Doyle rules.
he's been hampered by injuries for the last few years and failed to impress even when healthy. Though the team did let his teammate Eric Ebron walk away, I don't think it's going to be enough to get Doyle into the starting tight end conversation,
Right.
even if he stays healthy for a full season, which
Right.
is not guaranteed with them. So
Okay.
that's all I got on that. That's why I'm cheating here, Perry. And then I got the Jaguars tight end, who's James O'Shaughnessy.
O'Shaughnessy.
Yep. There's definitely more letters in there than that. And yeah, that's it. Like, he had 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. They don't use their tight end. I'm not drafting him.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk real briefly about the Houston Texans tight ends. The number one tight end on the depth chart is Darren Fells. I don't think the season will end with Darren Fells as the number one tight end. He's 34 years old. His career is coming to a close. He finished, though, as the 15th tight end last season, which is hilarious and just shows you like how bad tight end is in the NFL, because he had 34 receptions for 341 yards, but he did have 7 touchdowns. So that's why he finished as 15th. I do think that third-year guy, Jordan Akins, is going to be moving up to be the number one tight end on the team. I don't think that makes him super fantasy relevant. I think he'll finish right around maybe 650 yards and close to 4 or 5 touchdowns. So you might end up having to start one of these two guys. I hope not. I hope you draft better. I hope you get Jonnu Smith because I told you to. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of tight end production on this team.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention the Jaguars also brought in Tyler Eifert. Okay, but yeah, that's it. So next week, we'll be talking about the NFC South.
True. Big true there.
And we'll be giving away an autographed Andre Reed jersey. So
second true. That's a second big true. All we do is tell the truth here.
yeah, big ones.
Big ones.
All right, we'll catch you guys next week.